and welcome to the July 12th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting for Nevada Irrigation District, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Division 1. Here. Division 2.
Here.
Division 3. Here. Division 4.
Here.
Division 5.
Here.
Okay, so we will give an opportunity for members of the public to make comments for items not on the agenda. No hands, so we'll move on to the special orders.
Okay, well, Board, I will go ahead and take this item right now. We've got a handful of staff who's celebrating monumental years of service here at the district, and so I'm going to go through each one. We've got, looks like their photos up on the screen, so you'll be able to see them. If you pass them in the hall or out in the field, you at least have some knowledge about putting names to faces. As I was looking through all of these particular individuals, it struck me that really nearly everyone started the district 10, 15, or 20 years ago in the maintenance department as a utility worker. And so it really kind of exemplifies, and as you'll hear as they've moved through their career and what they're doing now, it really is interesting that, people just have started at this level in the maintenance department and been able to adjust, move their positions throughout the district just to better their career and continue their work and just continue to be here at the district, and we applaud them for that, moving on. So that was an interesting thing.
That's one of the things I love about NID is
Yeah.
we take a young person in at the starting level,
Yep.
they get training, they get experience, and they can just move right on up.
Yep. And they stay with.
And stay with, and it's a wonderful thing.
It's great.
We provide for these folks.
Yeah. So Alex Ramirez is there on the left of the screen. Alex is a utility worker with the district, started in 2013, clearly 10 years ago this year. He spent 8 years, he first started as a meter reader within the customer service department, spent about 8 years in this position before he transferred to the maintenance department, where he is currently as a utility worker in 2022. He is extremely experienced and knowledgeable about the district locations and activities and services throughout both Placer and Nevada County. He worked for our Placer crew for a period of time. Now he's back up here with the Grass Valley maintenance crew, where he's currently working on the crew for service and treated water. Alex is one of our bilingual staff, so he really helps out with a lot of, moments where we do need assistance in communication to Spanish-speaking audience. So we really thank him for that and his 10 years of service. He's been a great asset to the maintenance department and moving forward. So thank you, Alex. Troy Gomes, he's there on the right. Troy is our hydroelectric technician. He started in the maintenance department and worked his way through the ranks of the utility worker series. He's becoming a go-to Mr. Fix-It on treated water pipes and services, according to the department. He has an exceptional strong work ethic, and his skill has led him to advance into this hydraulic technician position within the operations department, where he's in charge of maintaining district's pressure regulating systems, PR, pressure regulating valves, which, as we all know, is undulating and moving all over the place. So his work throughout the district in all levels is super important. And a little fun fact about Troy is that around 5:15 every day, he starts his workouts at a boot camp style workout program around 5:15. So all that before a whole day of work.
Where does he,
Oh,
Good
you
luck.
5:15
AM, yeah,
Holy smokes.
yeah, so.
where does he do it?
That I don't know.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, so, keeps himself in shape. All right. Next one, 15 years. We've got Frank on the left. So in 2008, Frank is our water distribution operator 2. Frank started, again, in the maintenance department where he brought his knowledge of carpentry work to the department. He later transferred to the water operations department where he currently runs Route 13 in Placer County. So you'll see him bopping around down there on Route 13. Sounds like it's in Karen's region. And he knows about every single route in Placer County, so very knowledgeable about the systems all throughout the county. A little fun fact about Frank is he loves sport, and at one point in his life, he played semi-pro football with the San Jose Bandits.
Really?
Cool.
Pretty cool, huh?
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, next, Tim Rowe is on the right in the picture. Tim is our maintenance supervisor in the maintenance department. He came to the district back in 2008 with a vast amount of construction experience. Tim is a local to Grass Valley, native to the area, so he knows a whole bunch of people in this community and is all over the place, and wherever he goes, I think he gets pulled over and stopped by everybody just to talk to him. He's very personable, will communicate and have a really jovial conversation with anybody you run into. He came to the maintenance department as a utility worker back in 2008. His experience as a supervisor led him to become the maintenance supervisor for the raw water crew for more than 6 years now. That's where he's sort of laid his hat. And Tim lately has been responsible for taking on sort of the oversight of a lot of the newly hired crews in the maintenance department. So he kind of shepherds them along and shows them the ropes, tells them what's what, and if you go 3 trees up and take a right and you go down 7 rocks, you'll find, whatever it is you're looking for, right? So he's got an incredible understanding of the system and the raw water system. We really appreciate Tim's work, so thank you, Tim.
Yeah, he oversaw the rock work on Tar Ditch.
Tar Ditch. There you go.
Looks like Venice. It's beautiful.
Yeah. There's a lot of incredible Taj Mahal type facilities out there that Tim has been well in charge of. Okay, the next slide we have Chad Smith on the left. So this group is celebrating our 20 years at the district. Started in 2003. If you can remember back what you were doing in 2003, I certainly don't. But but this was when. So Chad started as a utility worker 1, worked his way through onto an equipment operator, and is now our hydroelectric maintenance tech. He has experienced in rebuilding some of the old wooden flumes that we had that have all been converted and since replaced now. But Chad has had experience all the way back in the early 2000s with that work. His extensive knowledge at all the facilities, he has gained valuable experience from the canals, pipelines, now the hydroelectric power plants and our dam structures. So he brings a vast knowledge and wealth of information to all operational systems of the district, from both the operations, water ops, and now the hydroelectric. He always achieves a high manner of, wanting to do something that's challenging. And one element that there was during a major snowstorm, and it must have been this year, the crew had to snowshoe up over several miles of snow and ice in order to get to Bowman Dam, in order to do some work on a washed out road that was happening. And so, it's something I think that they probably all wish to forget, yet it'll be something that they all remember for the rest of their lives, which is pretty cool. So thank you, Chad, for your service. Chris Thompson, there in the center. Chris came to us as a utility worker 1. He's currently a senior utility worker. He's worked on the canals, facilities, constructions, and the service elements of the district for years. Chris is probably, he's extremely knowledgeable about the locations and the facilities in the overall water department, and has sort of become someone who can, identify facilities really quickly when he's out there in the field, and just has a vast knowledge of where we are. He's worked up his way through the utility worker classifications to his leadership role as a senior utility worker. One of Chris's strongest areas is working alongside and teaching with a positive attitude while sharing his in-depth knowledge of the district. So, thank you, Chris. Next, to the far right, is Nathan Wadley. Nathan Wadley is our water superintendent. Nathan also began his career at the district in the utility worker 1 position back in 2003.
Same day as Chris.
Same day?
Yeah, well, according to,
Same day?
15.
Yep. I can't see that with but yeah. So soon afterwards, he transferred over to the water operations as distribution operator. His strong work ethic and dedication allowed him to promote rapidly. In 2006, Nathan moved to become a senior water distribution operator, and became the water distribution supervisor in 2009. So he progressed pretty quick. His natural qualities as a leader was able to leap his position to where he is now as the water superintendent in 2012, where he resides today. He is a tough but true leader. Nathan has a way about him to really bring decisions to a head, but he's absolutely fair, and he'll stand by his crew and his team no matter what. He plays a really crucial role in handling a lot of difficult situations and conversations with the community, especially during the drought when we had to cut off services. Nathan handled a lot of those phone calls with professionalism and tact, even though I think on the other side of the phone, the same respect was not given to him. So he really handled a lot of difficult situations. As a side note, Nathan coaches his girls' softball team, and so successful that he took their local team to a national championship tournament not long ago. So congratulations and thank you, Nathan.
I want to add on to that because Nate, Chip, and John got something solved yesterday that had been festering. I heard on Saturday had been festering for a month or so, and these people are now very happy. You solved the problem, so thank you.
Nathan was also very helpful. So that I really got a personal feel for the district and Nathan's attention to detail when you really appreciated that work.
Yeah, cool, great. Last two, Sam Beaver. We've got Sam, he's our water distribution supervisor. Sam, again, started his career in the maintenance department, spent most of his time on the service crew, came to the operations side as a water distribution operator, and now he has worked his way up to the water distribution supervisor. He's in charge of the crews down there in Placer County, so that's where he mostly presides. And I remember one of the first field trips I got to take in Placer County was with Sam, bumping along on a canal road now about 7 years ago, but we had a good conversation, so appreciate it. Sam, on his off time, likes to take his family camping and long runs with his dog, Coda. Yeah. Finally, we have Shad Chittock. Shad is the treated water superintendent. Started in January of 2003, again, as anybody, utility worker. After 2 years, Shad transferred to the water operations department as a distribution operator, made his way to a plant operator. In 2015, Shad was promoted to a chief water treatment operator, and then quickly transferred in 2016 to the water treatment supervisor. His positive attitude and will get it done mentality led to his recent promotion as a treated water superintendent. He's a quick learner, he's earned the respect of his team, and continues to ensure all of our regulatory measures for our water systems are met at the highest standards that we could possibly be.
Wow,
So
that's a big responsibility.
that is a huge responsibility.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Shad. Little side note of Shad, he apparently is been known as a horse whisperer. He spent many years at a local ranch as a ranch hand training horses.
Oh, wow.
A long time, so that's interesting. Yeah, so thank you, Shad.
I also had the opportunity to tour the Lake of the Pines water treatment plant with Shad. He was an excellent representative of the district. He clearly knows the systems inside and out, so that was a good opportunity to see his expertise in action. And the community was very appreciative of his time and expertise.
Yeah, I know that we've taken some school groups to some of the water treatment plants too, and Shad's usually on point for leading those cool kids around, showing them what's going on. Yeah, making sure they don't drop a lollipop in the water or something.
Well, you know, one of the things, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. One of the things I noticed is that, I know this is true of Shad and of Nathan Wasley, and there may also be true of others, but they are generational NID employees.
Sure.
Isn't that true? And I don't know the specifics, it doesn't even matter, but, I mean, it does matter, but it's just for this conversation, but it just points out again, you know, what NID can provide for these young men and women and their families, you know, for generations. It's just astounding and wonderful to me that we can do this. And so, you know, thank you, Shad. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chad, Frank, Tim, Alex, and Troy. You know, you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to, Chad had a neighbor who was, she was pretty much in trouble, living by herself, and on his own time, went in and said, oh, we can get this done, not knowing what the problem was, but he had it done within hours.
Wow.
He just attacked it. And her life has been so much easier since then.
Oh,
So, yeah, hell of a neighbor.
great.
Cool.
Well, I have one other comment, and, you know, I went back and looked at our strategic plan, and I had, you know, emailed
Right.
you, and I think you. And, you know, our second strategic priority is for the, to continue to engage and prioritize the recognition of our employees. And I love doing this, and I'm hoping we can enhance this in the future, because these folks are the backbone of NID, and I appreciate each and every one of them. And whenever I'm doing my roadshow that I do, I have slides that show these folks in action, and usually I get an audible gasp out of the audience, because nobody really gets what these folks do to keep that water running. And so I'm on this little crusade to make sure that people know how much and how hard they work.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping to see more recognition in the future.
Yep,
So,
yep, we're working on a lot of that.
good.
Yep,
Thank you.
I think we
I have
will.
a couple questions on the process. So I think this is great that we recognize them here, but it feels weird that they're not here.
Right.
And
That was
I noticed
my
that
point
last
yesterday.
year.
Yeah.
Is there another forum where they're being recognized in front of their coworkers, or is this the forum?
This is kind of the forum. In the past, we had staff come in. It became uncomfortable. Some are just, I just want to show up and do my job. Some just didn't, they appreciated it, yet it just became kind of a burden almost to many of the staff. A burden's probably not the right word. It just is a different space and a different feel. But is it happening?
Maybe like a breakfast or something.
Well, you know, that was my point that I wrote to Greg and to Karen, is that, you know, as a board, I'd like to be able to have them here or somewhere where we can go down and make eye contact, shake their hands and thank them for their service, because, as I said, they are, as we know, they're the backbone, and I'd like to do something to further celebrate their achievements and their commitment to the district. So I'm in agreement with you.
Maybe we could agendize it.
I think it's something we can talk about, yeah. There's other ways that we are talking about, just, you know, the recognitions, and, it's throughout. You know, we definitely have it within our pipeline, which is our employee newsletter. It's here on a public space here, but I can understand the interest in the, you know, the ability to want to shake a hand and hey, thank you, and that's good.
I think it has to be meaningful to the employee.
Right.
So the way it was done in the past was well-intentioned, but didn't have the desired outcome.
Sure.
Did it? I don't know.
Well, I think Greg would know.
I think
For some it did, and for some it didn't, and
Yeah, I
so.
think you can ease it down to, like, if you had a little plaque or something you're gonna give them anyway, like, that would be nice to do here, and it doesn't have to be like a big circus or make them uncomfortable, but just give them a little bit more recognition.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, 20 years is a big deal.
it is, totally agree.
Or let's go down to Grass Valley Brewing and, really toast them correctly.
We should have an after party down at Grass Valley.
There you go,
And buy everybody a beer and a pizza or whatever it is.
sure,
Okay,
point taken,
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't need
Yep.
to be labored.
thank you.
I mean, some go down there anyway.
That's the point.
You'll be there.
That's right.
Thank them in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, that
Yeah.
was very well.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate the background, that's helpful.
yeah,
It's nice, huh?
thanks for their
Yeah,
supervisors
they
and
deserve it.
for putting that together, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yep.
The consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda unless there's,
I'd like to talk about the important.
Okay, 4D and 4E, all right?
so we're going to remove 4D as amended, to remove 4D and 4E.
I'll second. Sorry, Chris.
Do we have any public comment on, the consent, the motion to approve 4A, 4B, 4C, 4F on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing nothing, we will take a vote. Division 1,
Yes.
Division 2,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 5,
Yes,
Division 3. Aye.
Okay, so it's possible that this was discussed prior to me being on the board. And if that's the case, this might be just me catching up. So I don't know who wants to address this from staff, but I'd like to understand if this, so we're talking about 4D now, the excavator. Is this replacing an existing piece of equipment that is gone beyond its usefulness, or is this in addition to?
second question, is within the budget that we approved?
Well,
I assumed that was true, but that's a reasonable.
Yeah,
I kind of recall this, actually.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if maybe, Doug, do you know much about this particular purchase? I unfortunately do not have the knowledge. Kian is out on holiday at the
Yeah,
moment,
that's-
so I don't think there's anyone in Hydro that really.
Well in budget, I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't answer that first question either, whether or not this is a replacement or a.
So without understanding if this is replacing something, if we've gone to the secondary market to look for used equipment, I'm going to vote no, because I don't have any other information.
Okay.
My guess is that it's gonna pass anyway, so we could hold a vote for it. But I would like to understand that in the future.
well, I think,
I can't believe that this wouldn't be part of the CIP.
That's my question.
Because all the major vehicles were on the
Right.
CIP list, so I don't have the CIP in front of me, so I didn't know.
but fire prevention, which this would do, is becoming a lot more critical for us in
Well,
our
I
treatment.
think Trevor.
Yeah,
pointed to the
from your-
process. It should have been on the CIP if it was to be purchased this
We
year.
went over all of those.
That's why I don't understand why this was being rolled out, that's why I'm asking the question.
Because
Yeah.
it's over the amount.
It's over the purchase authority.
Yeah, no, I understand that part.
Oh, okay, the
Like
process.
why it wasn't grouped in with the other purchases.
Sure. I unfortunately do not have the answer for you at the moment.
Okay. Well,
I could only say that I know that all of these items that might come to the board have been discussed and vetted with
Yes.
the general manager at the time.
Yeah,
I just don't have a staff, fair enough, I just don't have the knowledge to answer your question, and I'll be honest.
So I'll leave it up to you, Karen, if you wanna call a vote. I'm guessing it's gonna pass.
Well, we have to. I move to approve the purchase of a mini excavator.
And I'll second that. Item 14.
So,
Yep.
do we have any public comment on the purchase of a mini excavator? Okay, so we'll take a vote.
Division 1,
Yes.
Division 2,
Yes.
Division 4,
No.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 3.
Aye. So
Yeah, so 4E, I just wanted a little bit of background. Roughly how many connections does this, facility support?
What is Auburn? About 5,000 treated water customers.
Okay, sorry,
That's 400 a customer.
yeah,
And this, I do recall, was on the CIP.
this was,
Yeah.
And this finishes the job?
Yeah, in terms of the upgrades with the VFDs, the new motor control panels,
Yep.
switchgear, new transformer, all that stuff, correct?
This is it.
Soft starts, yeah. This doesn't include a permanent generator, remember, we removed that item
Right.
because we're on the grid with the hospital, so this will include a transfer switch cover so that if we need to bring a trailer one, we can do that to run it in a worst case emergency. There was no need to put a permanent one out there.
so the only other clarification that I was looking for is, do you feel that with additional planning, that this $2 million could have been broken up over multiple years? Or is it need to all be done in one shot to be
A
effective?
big portion of it would need to be done in one shot. The motor control panels, I think overall are just over $1 million by themselves.
Okay,
Which is important. as
just
part of-
parts-wise?
Yeah, correct. So then we have what we're installing within the building is a separate little building within the building, a room effectively, motor control center. So some of the things like perhaps upgrading the transformer and doing some of those things, maybe could have phased out a little bit, but it would have been on a smaller scale. The majority of the stuff for the VFDs, motor control, all that takes up a big portion of this cost.
And roughly, like on average, what's a connection, revenue to, per connection, what's the revenue to us? Per year?
On an
Like,
average,
if it just had a WAG, is it $100, $1,000? I'm just trying to understand with the $2 million, how long does it take us to break even?
I don't have that information.
What's the life? What is the average life of this?
So the previous one's been there probably 20 years.
That's what I was
It needs to be dealt with, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll probably get into this at the 218.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the specifics of the averages and all the usage.
I think, you know, that sort of thought in kind of moving into the next budgeting cycle here is, what does something cost? What's the useful life of it? How many connections, how many people are contributing, you know, benefiting from that? So how long for those people is it gonna pay for itself?
Yeah.
It looks like this will probably pay for itself in a couple of years, and it's gonna last 20, so the numbers, pencil out.
Yeah, and it also reduces our electrical costs, right? Because we now have stop starts and we also don't have to go deadhead the pumps, which is choke them off. Right now, the pumps turn on at, I think it's 1,200 gallons a minute. So if we need 1,500 gallons a minute flow out of the plant, we turn 2 pumps on and then choke one way back so that we only put out 1,500 gallons a minute. So the pumps aren't running efficiently, they're burning quite a bit more energy. Also, when they start up with hard start, which means they draw a lot of energy right up front, which impacts our
So
overall system as well.
it's a variable
This is
frequency.
variable frequency drives that we're adding, which means we'll be able to ramp the pumps up and down to meet the flow requirements.
Yeah.
Which extends the life of the pumps as well as electrical system.
Yeah, I don't have the history here, so maybe you guys do this, but, what I've seen so far is kind of like, this needs to be replaced, this is how much it costs. What you just explained is way more important to me, is this is how much it costs, but it's gonna save us, and it would be nice to have a chart that shows over these 20 years, this much electricity. Then it just becomes easier to do the budgeting part of it.
Gotcha.
Well, add to that, this is an R&R. This is something that has met its life expectancy, it needs to be replaced, should have been paid for through the years.
That's what,
Right.
when I read about it, it seems like it should have been done already, or at least parts of it. That's my concern. And it's really my concern going into this budgeting cycle, looking forward, and especially my constituents have the opinion that we haven't been doing maintenance that should have been being done over the last 5 years. And when these big numbers start showing up, we're gonna have to, we're gonna at least have to be able to explain why they weren't being done for the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely, and some of these things just will have to be done, right? And if the pencil is rather dull in terms of penciling out over time, just.
Well, there's always the option to just shut it down.
Yeah, well,
Right?
for treated water system,
I mean,
probably not, but for,
I'm not advocating for that, but that's, if it was that bad,
that's a decision.
right? So,
Process, right, that'll be part of that.
well,
Where do you live?
Yeah, right. We'll shut yours down
Wait a minute.
first.
My-
That's my treatment of the land. I don't.
I know, really.
Nothing just has to be done. There's always another alternative. Now, we've probably put ourselves in a bad position by not doing it over time.
But I think we're projecting things a little bit here. I agree with your general premise that we have to be looking at the cost benefit of any investment. Kind of to go back in time and say we should have been doing X, Y, Z maintenance, we really didn't, as a district, didn't have the planning framework to be able to systematically do that, nor did we have, the rate generation, to do more than what we were doing.
Well, and there were different priorities. I mean, there was not a big priority
There
put
wasn't a
on.
will to do it.
Yeah, it was like, when it breaks, we'll fix it.
But we have some catch-up to do.
Yeah, there is a lot of.
And there will be a
catch-up.
cost-benefit analysis. It may not be the only consideration.
So we're not gonna, I mean, I hate to even say something like we're gonna even potentially shut down the water treatment plant.
Yeah, me neither.
We're not
No
gonna
way.
do that, just because
We
that
can't do
is
that.
our mission, and we would do a lot of things before we would shut off any treated water.
That's right.
Sure.
And that's part of the rate process, is it has to pay for itself, and our customers
Well,
have been paying for it.
So, there's a large constituency that believes that hydro should be paying for raw water, offsetting costs for raw water. This is how it was sold to them in the 60s and 70s. I have the articles that were published in the newspapers, regardless what staff and other people will tell you. And I have the resources of people who were on the board or family members who were on the board during the time. So we're going to get to this rate study, and I know we're trying to get our systems in order so that we can have a very well-defined set of metrics of what hydro's really doing. But I want to understand inside and out how much profit hydro's making, real profit, and I realize that some of that's been obscure so far, you know, with the overhead not being charged appropriately. So as we segment those things out into, you know, rec, hydro, water, and we get the accounting right, it's going to, a ton of scrutiny is gonna come under hydro, or the budgeting part. And I believe there's probably more money there than other people, and I just wanna be educated. Maybe I'm wrong.
So Trevor, I agree with you, that's how hydro was sold. We also have to realize, I think, that the golden era of hydro is over.
That's easy to say. I wanna see the numbers.
Can I ask, we're veering
We are
to a
veering.
different topic.
Well, it's actually.
I mean, I see how it could be there, but this is about
Yeah,
approval of,
I agree.
of a system.
We can take this,
Do you wanna make a motion?
And
yeah.
I made note of the comments, sir, so, in the future with staff reports, we could start to put that, some of that kind of
Yeah.
information in there, how much.
I just don't wanna see lump sums, it's 2 million, this thing doesn't, needs to be bought. I wanna understand the why.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I would just suggest that when we have the CIP discussion, that's really the place for that. This is, because this project presumably is on our CIP, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we're just approving what we already approved.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in a lot of this discussion.
That's the problem. He was.
So I'm trying to catch up.
Oh, It was a good question.
It was a good question.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in any budgeting stuff. Well, I was here, but I wasn't given all the information. There was a decision made to wait till after December, so I didn't participate in any of the budgeting
You wanna
discussion.
make the motion?
I have a question before you go.
Okay.
Doug, is this all electrical? Doesn't say here what it's.
So a lot of it is electrical. There is a new building room, the control room that we're installing. We're gonna be doing some conduit trenching as we connect the old transformer, which is in a different part of the site over to there. So there is a little bit of that as well. A lot of it is the electrical component. Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate the background too, it's very helpful. And I ask everyone to, for the next few months, just to catch up. Give me a little bit of grace.
You bet.
I thought it was a good question. Good.
Yeah, I know. I just don't want somebody to come a year from now and go, how did you vote for $2 million?
Right.
And I'm like, well, I didn't know anything, so I said yes, right? I want to at least ask the question.
Sure.
So who's making the
That's
motion?
not
I'll
your-
make the motion. I move to award a contract with C&D Contractors for consultation of the North Auburn Water Treatment Plant Upgrades Project in the amount of $2,075,740, with a contingency of $200,000, and authorize the general manager to execute the appropriate documents.
For the construction, not consultation.
Oh,
It's okay. Just want to clarify.
yeah, we want to build something.
We want to build something.
Second.
Do we have any public comment on items, the proposal to approve item 4E on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll take a vote.
Division 1,
Yes?
Division 2,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 3.
Aye. Okay, with that, we'll turn it over to Sandra for the financial close workshop.
I'll just introduce really fast, Sandra, our Director of Finance, will introduce the Finance Close Workshop, which is a new policy that, we're bringing forth, and Sandra, have at it.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, you're welcome. We're excited to bring this forward. So it is a new policy to the district. It is a financial close policy. And just here to seek some direction from you and feedback on the policy. So I'll just kind of do a high level of it. We're recommending a 45-day close, which would allow staff to go through and fully reconcile each month. Have not been doing that, so this is exciting. The team is excited, everybody's excited to have a little bit of formal structure in place. So there will be, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So reconciling the bank account or all the transactions?
So all of the transactions. So thank you for the correction. So the team has been doing things monthly, like the bank reconciliation and some of those items, but they have not been necessarily tying it back to all of the balance sheet accounts, so that all of the assets and all of the liabilities, which right now are about 150 different accounts. So it is, it's going to be a big undertaking for the team. But it's not just finance, right? It's really the district as a whole. There are so many different departments that feed into and need to provide support to the finance team. So we have, customer service, who handles all the revenues. We have recreation in the campgrounds. They have cash out there. And so it's really a district-wide pull together to try and meet this timeline and do things more timely. And we've already been, these last 4 or 5 months, working with departments, communicating out that this is, we're bringing this forward, right? So I try to do an internal sort of workshop, if you will. And now I feel like we're at a good point where we can bring it to the board for formal approval, and recommendation. So, yeah, so each month, basically, the team will be going through the accountants specifically and reconciling all 150 accounts. And what I don't want them to get stuck on is, those are the balance sheet, right? Assets and liabilities, but the offset is also the revenues and expenses. So we are working into doing everything, the revenues, the expenses, taking a look at everything, really, not just the balance sheet. And so that is one thing we're proposing, all the balance sheets. So we'll have basically 2 sets of files. We'll have the balance sheet, the GL reconciliations, general ledger reconciliations, that will be one set of files. And how, that's probably a little too much detail, but how that's happening is each month the accountants will prepare their set of reconciliations that have been pre-assigned to them, and they're going to stick to the same ones for a while until they can get comfortable and really understand the details, the ins and outs. And so they will go through those. Each month they will have a deadline, which is proposed in here, this 45 days. And when they are complete, they will place a final version, a PDF version of, the first page will be the trial balance from our finance system and all the supporting documentation behind it. And so that will make it easy for the reviewer to come in and review all of those, approve, make sure, you know, things are looking okay, there's not anything, you know, to question, and also to make sure things are moving. We don't want items on the balance sheet to sit stagnant, deposits, anything like that, things that we should be actively working towards. Yes?
So 45 days, so if you wanted to do the end of January, it would come in the middle of March or the middle of February?
So 45 days after the month. So January ends, middle of March is when we would be reconciled. So there will always be a timing, because it does take a while. And especially right now, like I mentioned, we're on this catch-up. We just completed the audit, and so now we're catching up 2023, and the team is doing an outstanding job. We are about 75% caught up through May, and so that is amazing. You think 150 reconciliations a month, so that's over, it's almost 750 reconciliations we had to catch up on, and we are getting there. So it's exciting, the team's excited, it's a lot of work, but
What's the existing policy? Is it?
there's not one.
There is none.
Yeah, so this is brand new policy to the
Much
district.
better than the old one.
Yeah.
It's just formal, right? So it's something in place to hold everybody accountable
So
to.
when has January typically been closed?
I'm with you, so I'm catching up on the history, right? But a lot of
You're
the
gonna
things
plead ignorance like I
weren't being done until year end, really. So
Really?
even this year end, we hammered through a lot of reconciliations and a lot of journal entries. But going forward, that's not the practice that we want to have.
This is exceptional.
Yeah, so we're,
And it is
Details.
typical to do it monthly, not quarterly?
it is, and so there are things, I have a sample of a kind of a month-end checklist, and that's just a sample, because I'm not asking you guys to approve the internal process, but internally I'll also have a quarterly and an annual checklist for the team, because not everything can we do monthly, right? So quarterly, we file sales tax, so we will be looking at it monthly, yes, we want to look at everything monthly, but fully reconciling some things quarterly and some things annually.
Okay.
Or get rid of the general journal entries.
Yes, yes,
And this will streamline our audit process.
it should, absolutely.
And you mentioned in your presentation that, you just finished or concluded the audit. Was that for 2022?
Yes.
Okay, so just for those of us who are new here,
Yeah.
you need to know that, yeah, that, in the 4 years that I've been here prior to Sandra, that those audits were late. I mean, really late. What would you say? They were December and
Sometimes into the following year, yes.
Sometimes into the following year.
Could be 18
And the
months.
general journal entries were in over 100.
And, well, and the audit exceptions were over 100. And so things were not as they should be, and I'm so grateful to have Sandra here. I mean, the fact that she's been through an audit process for 2022, and it is June or July, is extraordinary.
So what you're saying is, let's take random number, 2018 was finished sometime in 2020?
Possible. There were some of those that went pretty long, and a lot of it had to do with this catch-up from almost 12 months or more back of reconciling. And so that just took so much time and energy and effort on the finance team and a huge burden. So I completely commend the finance department for pushing this forward and putting it out, because it's important.
I'll second that, and, dirty laundry. What was the biggest surprise that you found?
Oh, that's not
The
fair.
biggest
It
surprise?
had nothing to do with
No.
her.
Not her at all.
No.
No.
No, it's actually, believe it or not, it is more common in governments than not
Right.
to not have a formal process. I mean, where I previously came from, I started and I implemented the same things there and, cleaned up the audits and got to this point. Because it's a good feeling for the staff, it's a good feeling for the board and the public to, establish trust, really it is. So, yeah, there's no surprises, it's, unfortunately more common than not. So, yeah, but we don't want to be common, we want to be different.
So I will say, I think, in my work, we were extraordinarily behind.
Yeah, it was behind, and it's, the morale and the team just feels defeated, so this is uplifting and.
People were working crazy hours to make this
Yeah.
work. And, and there was pressure to complete the audit, because if the audit wasn't done, then we didn't, I forget what it was now, but it had to do with our bondings, and, I mean, it was like this huge domino effect, and it was a mess, it was a hot mess, I'll just say that.
And we lost a few staffs due to it.
And we lost some staff for it, and,
Burnout.
it was terrible, and thank God that, Jen came, and she got Sandra going, and things are getting better, so.
So,
Say that, yeah.
so this is written as you would like it, and once it's approved, then are we looking at end of the year, next year, before you guys catch up and start instituting it, or
No, I'm hoping by the, September, end of Q3,
really?
yeah. Yeah.
Fabulous.
So, like I said, we're teetering on almost being caught up now. June just ended, so we're almost done through May, and so we are still a little behind, and kind of leading into this next set of fund files. So we'll have the general ledger, the balance sheet items, and then we'll have a set of fund files. This hasn't been started yet, so this part of it will take a little bit longer, but it's really good for the team and just the district to have a set of fund files so that, when you're working on your individual accounts, you can also look at it by fund in the bigger picture, right? Because each fund is essentially its own business unit. And so that's just another layer of education and transparency, to the team, really. The more they know and everybody knows, the better off we are. So, that will take a little longer, but as far as reconciling the general ledger monthly, we really are hoping by Q3. And so, leading into that, Q3 financial reporting to you will look a little bit different, because you will have a balance sheet, hopefully, and we will keep you informed, but I really hope that does come forward in September.
Really?
Yeah, thank you.
Incredible.
So I have just a really basic question. I understand I'm reconciling my checkbook, right?
Mhm.
So I assume that here, this happens between your office and the controller's office, that you're both coming together and saying, that, yeah, this is, we agree on each of these items. Is that correct?
Yeah, and so I've kind of noted in here, really the controller would be seeing most of this day-to-day, reviewing these, approving these, and then I would probably more do the fund files, so the overview, unless they needed something for me to pull in or question something, it'll make it easier too, because I know where all the files are and I can go in and look if I need to do it. So I'm doing it right now, yes, until we get that controller position filled.
That was my question.
Yeah, so we're actively recruiting for that. The recruitment just closed, and so we're screening those and hoping to do some interviews soon. Yeah.
So Sandra, you were mentioning that, this year, when you had the audit simultaneous with trying to reconcile, created it was a conflict in workflow.
Mhm.
So how do you envision that conflict occurring in future years to be able to manage achieving
Of the-
policy with achieving the completion of the audit?
So, once we're on a good routine, year end should just be a little more extensive month-end close. Once we're there, the challenge this year was essentially on some items having to go back through the entire year, and so that took a lot of time. Meanwhile, we were able to keep up on some items, bank rec, I kind of had to prioritize what was most important, money, cash, first. So we kept up on those monthly, and then some of the other ones, like I said, we're catching up on now. So typically, that is normal at the beginning of the year when you're doing audit, and given small agencies and usually short staff, we will get a little bit behind, but I don't feel we will get too behind at all once we're there and caught up.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So we're very excited about it. And like I mentioned, there is just, that last page is just a sample. And so I like this, because each month when we come together as a team and we go over, what's outstanding, did you complete everything? We're all signing this together as a team, saying we all did our part, and it just becomes a little bit more formal, right? To hold everybody accountable, including myself and the controller, so.
Have you had any pushback from the?
No, and, the way I like to approach it is phasing it in, because it's not fair to them either to just, hey, we need all of this right now.
Double somebody's workload and like double Chip's workload, or, I'm interested in just how the ship
Sure.
pipeline, yes.
No, and that's a good point, because Chip's team, Aurora's team specifically, they will be hit pretty hard.
I know.
Some of
That's why
these.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I appreciate the question.
Mhm.
For an example, and I don't think we highlighted this enough, this is a good thing, but it is a tremendous lift on a lot of people. For instance, when we're reconciling all the outstanding loans we have, we're currently doing it once a year, and that's our customer service team, unfortunately, manually having to go in, review all the documents for the entire year, and then reconcile it. Doing that monthly is now taking every single one of those customers every month and doing it. So you're now doing it 12 times a year when you were doing it once.
Right.
So there is a lot of workload to this. It's not as easy as just, we're gonna make it happen. So we're trying to figure out, workloads and see how we can manage.
Is that an extra person, or is that going to be a program?
Or we get.
County program.
We're gonna push and see how far we can get, but, I just wanted to make that comment.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that was a
But
concern.
there's a lot to this.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and we don't know what that looks like yet. It could be potentially, the loans are a big deal. Those take a lot of time. It might be partnering with finance a little bit more and having finance help dig through some of those. It could possibly be a loan program. Our current software doesn't service loans, so that in itself is a challenge.
So we can we find out, can we monetize the loans versus how much more money it's gonna cost to account for them? And if it's cheaper to sell the loans off?
Oh, I don't think.
We can't do that.
We can't do that. That's definitely loans, right?
No,
That's Jennifer likes to
We
call
can't
them.
do that, but, there are some things, and that's why I said, we hope to be mostly caught up, but we might not be caught up with everything. That is definitely going to take.
Right.
Is it?
Not
Oh,
sure.
no, they're
Not
definitely.
sure they're
not
resellable.
One at a time, please.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Is it fair to say that you're doing this 12 times, so each month is probably a lot more work, obviously. But at the end of the quarter and the end of the year, maybe it's less work, and maybe I assume we have contractors come in for the, audits, and maybe that budget could be shrunk because they're gonna be here less time? I mean, are these possibilities,
Yeah.
or is it every month it's a lot more work, and it's a lot more work every quarter? I don't know, I'm not an accounting person.
Yeah.
That was my question.
No, that's a great question, and I won't speak for Aurora, and her team, but I do know, in my short time here, that are, the year end in her process takes her a tremendous amount of time. So yes, it's going to be a shift doing it monthly, and it is 12 times versus once a year, but it's also part of our due diligence on the loans, right? To make sure people are paying and are recharging them late fees and all of these other things. So we have to work through the time and what does that look like, because we really need to be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm self-incriminating. I did not get the option to pay, in 3 payments this year, and it wasn't on my form, it wasn't online. I paid a third, and I haven't heard from anyone here. And I raised it, it's like, you know, you gotta give everybody
Ask forgiveness instead
same
of
option.
permission.
The other thing I raised to Aurora was the vineyards, to get the discount, had, by the time they received their notice, they had like 4 or 5 days to come up with a significant amount of money. So that's, if what you're doing is gonna help clean up that, just our billing cycles, that would be helpful.
I'm not sure about that. I can't speak to that. I haven't gotten into the details of the billing and that with Aurora's team yet, but we'll be working definitely more closely on just different things that could help the flow into accounting and the financials, and you know, hopefully working with Aurora's team to see how our team can help support her a little bit better, right? And maybe take some of the reconciliations or something off of their plate, or just work closer together, so.
Is it possible to get a temp, you know, to help ease in this transition? I'm looking at Chip, you know, because I know that you're the one with the heaviest.
Can we
load
duplicate
there.
you, Chip?
I appreciate it. I think really what we need to do is see what the policy is, which we kind of have a great framework now, thank you.
Okay, good.
But, and just give it a shot, see what we can.
See where you go.
Yeah, just keep us like updated. Let's not wait a year to find out that you need 2 or 3.
That it didn't work and you needed.
That like, hey, this is really important, this is where it's benefiting us, but we're anticipating that we need to add a headcount.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to come up and sabotage this at all. I just wanted to highlight the fact that
No, I don't.
it's a lot
It's
more
important.
workload,
Yeah,
that's
it's-
all.
No, it is important. It's all part of it.
Yes,
That the staff is doing a big lift
I
here.
think everyone was wondering, but nobody was asking up here.
Right.
yeah.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned it's not just finance, it's district-wide, specifically Chip's team.
Yeah.
They are,
I knew that it would
Mhm.
impact you the most.
You really can't put a price on accountability.
Right. That's also true. So that's why temps, or, you know, just, you guys will figure it out. You're
Yeah.
wonderful and have all this history and you can figure it all out.
yeah, and since it is new, you know, if it's approved, we may be coming back sooner, right, to revise it if something isn't working. Maybe some things we can only do quarterly or annually, or maybe we can partially do it, right? Partial, at least it's better than only having eyes on once a year. So we'll work through all of that.
This is all part of
I trust that you
accountability, transparency. and
Yeah.
everything. This is really a nice quantum step up.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we don't need action right now. This will come back under consent. Is that
Yes.
what we're gonna do? Okay.
Yes.
One final thing, I think I
Yeah.
heard you say, this is best management, best management practice for the, business world, not necessarily in government. Did you say that?
Well, it's just common. It's, you know, talking with other agencies, I've been at other agencies, it's surprising, you know, because finance needs to be tight and structured, so.
Only in favor of this.
God bless.
Well, just ask if we have any members of the public who would like to make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
very
your
much.
work and,
Yeah.
all.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we'll turn it over to GM.
Very short and sweet. We're not gonna be given a, water review, what are we calling that? Water supply and that update, today. We did that last time, I believe, so.
Yep.
Doing pretty good. The only thing I wanted to mention was that you'll see a news information come out recently that, on the 28th of July, we're going to be, banning open pit fires from our campgrounds on the lower elevations at Scotts and Rollins reservoirs. So that's gonna be happening here
And the Forest Service
in
follow.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
And
may
may,
the force
and may
follow
those,
our lead.
may those out there follow as well, because, they'll still be allowed to have barbecues, and propane fires at a low setting, but just no open pit fires. So,
Beautiful.
yep, that's coming out, and that is all I have to report.
All the update I have is we had the Farm Bureau picnic at my place. It was not as well attended as the past, but it passed.
Should have been.
Should have.
It was great, a great day.
Trevor?
I was invited to Pine Valley Ranch, which I've grown up in the area and never knew was there in Auburn. If you haven't been, I suggest going out there. But Sarsis and Friends of the Bear River brought me out there, showed me what they've done on that property, which is pretty interesting. All the neighboring ranches, you know, this is South Placer,
Mhm.
my ranch is very dry, sparse, kind of oak trees. But they've planted redwoods and created like a habitat for trout in a stream in the middle of Auburn.
Wow.
It was very interesting to see what they've done, with, a moderate amount of resources, which was what was really impressive. So anyway, Pine Valley Ranch, you can get a Christmas tree there. I have no, stake in that business, so disclaimer.
Very cool. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Robert and team for inviting me out.
So, Rich?
Chris mentioned the annual picnic at Farm Bureau at his place. Don't miss it next year. Yeah, the food's great, people are better. So this afternoon, Antonio Garza from Feeding Crane Farm, Mike Pasner from Indian Springs Organic Farm, myself for going down to take the Ag Pass course, from 12:30 to 4:30. It's a course that then will allow us to re-enter our properties in case there's a wildland fire. It's not 100%. Last year, I took it for the cattle or the livestock. This year, it's for veggies or all living things. They also need to be irrigated. I mean, it's, to farmers, ranchers, it's huge to get back into your property. And my question also to us is that, do we have such an agreement to get back into the wildland to take care of the ditches and things like that?
This has been identified as a weakness, this exact question. And I know, first responders, OES, you know, the emergency services, they've really worked on coordinating with local utilities, specifically water, to bring them in. You know, it's not while the firefighting is occurring, but it may be immediately after.
No, if it's off a ways, to
Yeah.
bring him in to get it, whatever.
So
Yeah.
it has been a problem in the past, and from what I hear, it's been an area of focus for the emergency responders.
Do we reach out, I'll make the question today to who's presenting. And I do know that the county has a team of people to go in and get livestock. They've organized that. And then Search and Rescue has a team, but it's not all of them, not 180 in Nevada County, but there's a small team that can go in and out or get organized for traffic control or whatever. I just want to get us part of that equation.
I don't know if there's a formalized process, Chip. Do you have anything? I mean, I know there are relationships that we continue to build upon. We had the chief of the new Nevada County Fire with us just in here last month and talked about coordination in the event of fire, sharing at OES and the incident command centers, and having staff in place, embedded in the ICS, for discussing about facilities and critical infrastructure. But is there?
That's exactly what we do in the fire event, and at least in the last few, we stood up the IC command system. We go over, we talk with the team, we bring them maps with critical infrastructure of what needs to be protected, how we can help, how we can offer some help if possible.
Yeah.
They generally don't keep us completely out. If they know there's a critical facility there, they'll let our teams in. But at the same time, there's a fine balance of protecting employee safety and infrastructure. So, but generally, we coordinate and communicate through the incident command system and go to the command center. We have a staff member there usually.
Would it be beneficial to formalize, I mean, here's my certified ag pass, or, you know.
Well,
NID
you're an
pass.
individual, as a utility, we already have those relationships embedded. We did actually talk to them about various MOUs, MOAs, agreements between the district and the fire departments, and that goes beyond just entering into our facilities and seeing if they're okay. That goes to, we have 2 backhoes sitting in our yard, and,
Right.
and it's within immediate vicinity of where you might need it. Go grab, we'll bring our staff to go. So we do have these interconnection agreements, that some are formal, some are informal, and they'll happen at the time of the event.
Yeah, okay.
But it's all about
Nice.
the relationship that we continue to
Yeah,
foster, and
but
that's
it looks
key.
like the county's starting to formulate groups that are allowed to go in if the conditions are safe.
As
and
a
I-
private citizen, probably so.
Yeah.
As a utility, public government, we already have those avenues relatively set. And like Chip says, we are constantly at those ICS facilities.
Right,
But we'll get the notifications pretty quick.
of course. Okay, I have one more, little different.
Really? That's surprising.
I gotta promise you one. The most efficient Bitcoin generator takes 155,000 kilowatt hours to create one Bitcoin. 155,000 kilowatt hours. That's 20 cents a kilowatt hour at today's Bitcoin prices. That's a pretty good.
And the relevance, right?
Relevancy is
We
that
invest.
we have generation on hydro that sometimes we have to shut down because we have to pay somebody to take the energy. And the concept is, being used somewhere else, you switch it over to the Bitcoin generator when you have to pay somebody to get 20 cents a kilowatt hour back, and then you switch it back to the grid when Cal ISO says you have to. That's the relevancy. It's an income center.
Oh, can we not?
I know, let's not go down there.
So my thing is, should be explored as an income.
Fair enough. Point noted.
Electrical
Point noted.
over a beer.
Sounds good.
Well,
Explore
let's
other
just say
revenue options.
Others are making money at it.
Okay, cool, that's good.
So I'd say one thing, I mentioned something about this negative generation at the Lincoln Rural MAC, and now they're having me back to discuss it. So this is something people don't understand, and it actually doesn't make any sense to most people that, like, you generate energy and you put it on the grid and they actually charge you. So, this is part of our earlier conversation. These are the things that we need to vet out, because people don't understand it. As an electrical engineer, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it.
Well, and then shut down, like, we do occasionally shut it down if we have to pay somebody, and then turn it back on when we're getting paid. That wears out the machinery faster than if you just let it go.
Yeah, well, and I've had, I don't want to belabor this conversation, I had this conversation with Ian, where, like, some of these decisions get made the day before, and you don't have the option.
Right.
So these are the sorts of things that are
Kean
very interesting.
chose a bad week to be on vacation.
Well, no, he knew this was coming.
Well, we can ask, that's why.
We can follow up with this,
Yeah,
for sure.
We need to have a whole discussion about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to Ricky.
thank you, Madam President. I also attended the Farm Bureau picnic at Beer Wagons Farm, and it wasn't as well attended as others, and it was wonderful, Chris. Thank you for hosting. The food was extraordinary. The desserts especially were good.
Can't find better desserts.
The desserts were just crazy, all homemade, wonderful stuff. Anyway, thank you, Chris, for hosting that. And 2 other quick things I want to share. So I did end up going down to Cascade Shores to meet the camp host. There's been a lot of back and forth. I've been receiving complaints, not about the person, but about ancillary issues with the camp host, dogs and so on. And so on July 4th, I just went down there and met everybody and came away feeling so, it's a Monica, wherever you are, thank you for what you do. That Camp Host Gary was wonderful. I came away feeling very grateful and validated that we have a wonderful staff person there, and he is not letting his dog run away, and his dog is not a pit bull. So.
Good.
No, it's, anyway, and I got to meet the dog, pet the dog. I mean, it was kind of a crazy thing, but I'm so glad I did it, because now as I get these concerns voiced by constituents, I can say, I've been there, I pet the dog, it was great. So that was one of the things, that's what I did on July 4th. And then lastly, I noticed there was a huge, almost a half a page ad in the newspaper yesterday about Jennifer's appearance at Sierra College.
Yeah.
And the only thing I want to bring up about that is that, gosh, as a board, I would have liked to have known about that before it was like, I got sent the notice from somebody and it said, hey, are you coming, or do you know about this? And it's like, no, I didn't know about it, and I'll try to come.
July 21st?
Yeah,
Building
but,
ends 12?
well, yes, but so then we got the information, but I just want to say it would have been nice for me to have had some kind of advance, hey, board, guess what? I've been invited to do blah, 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 and I'm going to be there, and this is the date, and so on, rather than having to hear about it again in the grocery store or wherever. And I'm going to go, so I'm looking forward to it.
I plan to attend.
Good.
You're welcome.
Yeah, now how did you hear about it? I'm curious.
I got an email.
Yeah.
From?
You and Dad?
From me?
No, you didn't get it from Ray.
Totally kidding.
Like, wait a-
I had a group that they blasted.
I don't remember sending that.
I'll forward you the email.
No, it's okay, I've already gotten 3 from 3 different
Well,
sources.
you've been that posted.
But I would have liked to
Yeah.
have been notified here as well.
Yeah, I think it would have been a good thing
It's
for
gonna
us.
be a hot ticket.
Thanks.
Well, I think it's great that Jennifer is
I do too. It's
finding
wonderful.
time to squeeze in a presentation at the Sierra College. And, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It looked like a great content, and
Yeah, it's really great.
The only comment I have is that advertisers, right? First word, Centennial,
I know.
not even
I
on,
know, it was
it's not even on our
first
agenda.
word. I know, it's like, oh my goodness. And Cheryl, the gal who is the, that we sit on LAFCO with, she's moderating or putting it together. She's wonderful.
She'll be good.
And so I really encourage people to attend. And again, it would have just been nice to have.
Good comment.
Okay, and I have no updates. I'm back in Wyoming.
The
You have
bodacious,
been bicycling over the world.
Still here,
the bodacious blooms are dormant?
they're just trying to survive the heat. They will.
You just want to know that.
I didn't know about your donkeys. You have a rescued donkey farm, ranch.
I do have a donkey rescue. I'll update everyone on my next update.
Okay, we'd like to hear about the donkeys.
And
Can you
with
put
that,
together a slideshow for us?
I will call it a day. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody.